For this video essay, I decided to take a look at my and many other people's favorite superhero, Batman. Now the question that we're going to be answering today is, with Batman being one of the world's most popular superheroes, why is it that his series can't seem to survive reboot culture? To make things a little bit easier, we're only going to be looking at the most recent three Batmen, that being Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson. But before we jump into any of those three, I'd like to preface this by saying that Batman is a character that has been around for over 80 years, so it is really hard to see where one specific actor or director draws inspiration for Batman from. But with that being said, we can start things off by looking at Christian Bale's Batman.
What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
So I'll be focusing mostly on each actor's fan reception, but also looking a little into the money that their respective films made. For Bale, I was a little unfair, seeing how I used both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, while the other two Batmen, I only used one of their respective films. But nevertheless, Bale's Batman was arguably the most successfully monetarily when it comes to playing Batman, period. The Dark Knight made roughly 5.4 times its original production budget, and The Dark Knight Rises, its sequel, brought in around 4.7 times its original production budget, with both films making about $1 billion apiece. Now, after hearing a crazy number like that, you're probably wondering, if Bale's Batman was so successful, why did they decide to reboot it? Well, firstly, we can look at the reasons that Bale's Batman was so successful. So unlike past Batman renditions, Bale's Batman was realistic with his heroism. As author Ariana Summers said in her article, The Dark Knight Trilogy, 15 Reasons Christian Bale's Batman Was Perfect. This iteration of Bruce Wayne wasn't afraid to stop all the violence and rely on his brain rather than his brawn. The character is usually known as the world's greatest detective, and Christian Bale's Batman tried to live up to that moniker. Bale's Batman also stood out because it existed as a standalone character. At the time, Marvel was only beginning to expand from beyond just Iron Man and create the cinematic universe that we know today. Rather than DC trying to focus on franchising or building a world, they focused on individual stories and getting Batman right the very first time. Now, little did fans know that this wouldn't last for very long. This brought upon the Marvel vs. DC arms race in who could produce a better cinematic universe faster. And sadly, Ben Affleck's Batman was a product of this. Ben Affleck's Batman's debut was in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which came out in 2016, a few short years after Marvel's Avengers. The first time that we saw Ben Affleck's Batman on the big screen was in a large-scale movie that brought in Superman and Wonder Woman, which was DC's attempt at creating the Justice League, the Avengers' direct counterpart. Author Kimberly Spinney said in her article, DC's Complicated History of Reboots Explained, when the DCEU was conceived as a cinematic universe of its own, it was in direct competition with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that meant things were a bit rushed in an effort to truly compete with the MCU. This was made very apparent in Ben Affleck's Batman, with the character not having any substance or background to it. It only existed to make money and to compete with Marvel. And with viewers only having Christian Bale's Batman to compare Ben Affleck to, of course the population hated him. It was a very two-dimensional character that broke a lot of the ideals and morals that made Batman who he was. With DC so clearly scrambling just to produce content and losing a lot of their actors along the way, they decided to take the Batman story in another route. By giving director Matt Reeves the opportunity to direct a Batman film, it meant he got to choose whether he would attempt to save Ben Affleck's Batman or decide to start something new. In an interview with Matt Reeves, he said, I told Warner Brothers that I had to be given the freedom to do the definitive Batman movie. Impossible to launch halfway into a Batman, impossible to do it as an amateur. Reeves said, aim for the stars. That doesn't mean we'll get there. But if we leave without ambition, it's bound to be a disaster. I will not have tolerated to miss on the comic book character that I like the most. Instead of jumping headfirst into building a new cinematic universe, Reeves decided to lay the foundation first by telling a story of a young Batman finding his footing and showing his humanity. By showing off the morals and goals that made Batman who he was, the film was amazingly well received. because it reminded viewers of what Batman should be.
Thumb drive. Jesus.
With Robert Pattinson's more realistic approach to the Batman, it fulfilled that spot in all of us to become a superhero or to feel like it would actually be possible. To sum everything up, Batman is a character that isn't going anywhere. It's a character that's been relevant for the last 80 years, and with film focusing so much on spectacle in today's time, Batman is just the superhero to connect realism and surrealism to one another. But the reason behind the constant reboots of Batman can be traced back to a few simple elements. First, the character is ever changing, and so are the people who portray Batman. There will always be a new story to tell and a new light to show the character in. Batman is also DC's front-running character and one of, if not the, most popular superhero. If DC needed to produce a film strictly for profit, it's been proven time and time again that Batman is a character that can make them money and can even help to establish a cinematic universe. And lastly, Batman isn't just being rebooted for the sake of rebooting. It's all in response to older films and showing that DC is learning from its mistakes. Bale wanted to focus more on story building and show a grittier version of a superhero, while Affleck was a response to Marvel and DC's version of building their own cinematic universe, while Pattinson was DC's way of going back to what originally made Batman so loved, and them kind of scrapping the idea of a cinematic universe and focusing more on individual and intimate storytelling. Batman has only been improving with time, so it shows that DC is clearly learning something from their past mistakes. But I say all that just to say that there's a Batman for everyone. Bale, Clooney, Affleck, Keaton, Pattinson, even Batcow. So the more Batman, the merrier, right?